Hi, I'm Dave Antoine, PAC TV Government Access Coordinator, and welcome to this inaugural episode of Pembroke Today. Sitting with me is Pembroke Town Administrator Ed Thorne, and we're here to talk about Ed's role in the town of Pembroke as his town administrator. Ed, thank you for coming.
Dave, my pleasure, and I'm looking forward to seeing the show through.
Oh, great. So you're the town administrator in Pembroke.
That's correct. Since 1998.
Holy cow. So 16 years?
Just about, right.
All right. So one thing I have to ask is my role working with government. One of the misconceptions is, the difference between town manager and town administrator. Can you explain what the difference is?
Well, on general terms, there's the town manager might have more direct authority over all boards and commissions and department heads. That's not necessarily the case in the state. You can be called a town administrator and have the same kind of authority and power that a town manager has. It just depends on the charter of each community, whether you have a charter, which spells out, it's kind of like a constitution for the town. So whether you have a charter or, as in Pembroke's case, you're a hodgepodge of local bylaws, state laws, maybe traditions handed down since the Pilgrims. I mean, it just depends on each community, and each community is different. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things we're striving for is to get a charter for the town, to really put that all in one encompassing document, so that the future generations in Pembroke can build upon that. Right now, like I said, we're relying on something that might have been passed in 1975 or 64 or 54, those kinds of things. So,
okay. And like the day-to-day operations of the town administrator must be pretty interesting. I mean, every day is different.
Oh, absolutely. I've been in the business now since 1979 when I got my start in North Carolina as an assistant. And it's interesting for me in my career that I've been the first one on several occasions. I was the first assistant in North Carolina to my boss, who was the first town manager in Farmville. And then I went to West Virginia, and I was the first city manager in Ranson. I was the first county administrator in Hancock County. And now in 1998 through 2014, I'm the first town administrator in the history of Pembroke.
Wow.
So it's, I've broken ground in a couple of places, so I was kind of used to, the nuances of the new position. The town administrator evolved from the executive secretary form. So, it took the town some getting used to, and I think the latest town meeting that we had, where the new bylaw was passed that strengthened the town administrator position, went a long ways, to the future of the community.
Okay. And now, were you born in the South? Were you homegrown in the South?
No, actually, I'm a Jersey boy.
Really?
Yeah. I was born in Brooklyn, New York. When I was 9, our family moved out to Westfield, New Jersey, and then I went to college at East Carolina, played ball down there, and I was south of the Mason-Dixon line for a long time. Came up here in the late 80s for a couple of stints in Massachusetts. Wasn't used to the town meeting form of government, because once you get out of New England, you don't have that form of government.
Yeah.
You have either the mayor council form of government or the manager council form of government. And right now, nationwide, there's probably a greater percentage of city managers than there are mayors in the nation. But when you get into Connecticut, then you start getting into the town meeting form of government, and then especially Massachusetts and Maine and Vermont and New Hampshire. But it's only unique to New England. And a lot of people think that it's too cumbersome, but what we're seeing every year in Massachusetts is that a town or 2 or 3 communities evolve from that. Bridgewater would be the latest in our neck of the woods here, where they dumped the town meeting form of government and went to a town manager, town council form of government. And the council becomes the legislative body, as opposed to Pembroke, where the town meeting is the legislative body.
Right.
You can't pass a bylaw or a zoning bylaw or whatever unless you have town meeting approval.
I find that very interesting that New England is the only region that practices the town meeting form of government. It's very robust.
Oh, absolutely. But I think what's happening in this modern era, where people are so busy that towns are having, unless you have a major event or a major issue, towns are having a tough time getting people to go to town meetings. A couple of generations ago, it was the social event of the season.
Right.
Might have been held on a Saturday. They might have had a bake sale or something going on with that. And it was a community event. And now we're lucky if we get 150 people out of 20,000 to show up at a town meeting. And communities are finding that, some communities are finding that kind of difficult.
I have seen that become kind of a unique challenge in some of the communities you represent. I do want to say, though, that like your office and the town of Pembroke's government officials and their employees, they're great. Marion Smith, I can't say enough things about her, and Sabrina Chilcott, they're
We
great
have
people.
One of the best staffs that I've ever been around, and I'll challenge any community on the South Shore for our staff. The interesting thing about our staff and department heads in Pembroke is that other than our town accountant and myself, everybody else lives in Pembroke, which is kind of unusual that you would have so many department heads that live in the community that work in. And I think that really shows a lot of ownership that our department heads, whether it's fire, police, of course, Mary Ann, clerk, has to be a resident because she's elected. But whether it's the chief assessor, our treasurer collector, they're all residents of the town, and they all take pride in the community. And I think you sense that when I have these department head meetings, and how they feel and how passionate they are about the community, and how they want to do really well. Gene Fulmini, DPW director, is a resident. So it really is a wonderful work environment, and I think that's the reason why I've been there, over 15 years.
Well, I remembered when Chief Wall was sworn in for the chief of police, and I saw everyone from Pembroke, town officials, state representatives, they all came out, and that really showed, really great community engagement. And they're all here to support this man. Yeah,
we really do, and I think we rally around certain issues. I think that hopefully one of the upcoming shows that we're going to do will have the emergency management co-directors. I'll spit it out.
Okay.
And one is Chief Wall, and the other is Deputy Fire Chief Mike Hill. And the emergency management team is a great example of how we work in Pembroke, because I would venture to say that most communities won't have their library director on the emergency management team. They may not have the health agent, as we do, Lisa Cullity, on the emergency management team. They wouldn't have our executive assistant, Sabrina Chilcott, on the emergency management team. So, I mean, those people make up our team, and it really covers a cross-section of our staff, and really brings in a lot of expertise, into that. And we're going to be looking forward to telling the folks in Pembroke and other communities, how our emergency management system is going to work.
That's fantastic, and it's a great way to just let people know what's going on in town. The website is great. You guys update it so much, and we check every time just to put a bulletin board announcement. Excuse me. But I do love the fact that you're able to bring the emergency officials in here and just to discuss what's going on.
Yeah, I think we got some interesting things that the folks in town will need to know in case of an emergency. We've had a couple of semi-scares with Snowstorm Nemo and the remnants of Sandy and Irene. So we've had drills to that effect. And we've learned a lot, and I think that we'll share that with the folks when I bring in the emergency management co-directors to give them some insight as to what it takes for a community. It's just not very simple, to pull off these, whether it's an emergency shelter or bringing in food or whatever. It's not as simple as just all of a sudden calling up Stop and Shop and say, hey, can you deliver 20 loaves of bread or whatever. So but we'll share that with the folks when we bring in Rick and Mike. So
okay. And okay, totally changing gears here. You described a little bit about where you were born and everything like that. Can you just describe how did you go from being down south, going to school there, and then how you get to Pembroke? Like, how did you bridge that?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I just went through a couple of files looking for something else, and there was a note, a copy of the Beacon, which is the Mass Municipal Association's newsletter, and they put advertisements for any kind of position in there, and they have a website that has all the positions that are in municipalities statewide. On this particular case, I was doing an interim city manager position for a mayor friend of mine. He had a guy that they wanted to have as their future city manager, had no experience, had just gotten out of the Army as a lieutenant, and was living back in Ranson. And I went over there as an interim city manager to train David. And while I was there, the understanding was that when a position that I liked would come open, I was free to just, take the job. So I'd been there 6 or 7 months, and my old friend from West Virginia that I knew from the mid-'80s, Rocco Longo, who's now the town administrator in Marshfield, was town manager in Duxbury then. And he and I go back a long time. In fact, when I was the town administrator in Westboro in the late '80s, he was the town coordinator, town administrator in Northborough. And one of the Worcester papers did a big thing about these two guys that knew each other from West Virginia that now were working side by side in Worcester County. Well, fast forward 10, 15 years, and here I am working in Pembroke, and Rocco's in Duxbury, and he's the guy that told me about the Pembroke job.
Wow.
So so I came here in '98, and we worked together for several years on a number of projects. And one of them was, we shared in a weed harvester on the ponds, and a couple other things that we worked with. And we're still very close. In fact, we're planning on setting up a meeting with Senator Murray's staff next week on some legislation that had been proposed by the Plymouth County Commissioners regarding their county retirement fund.
Right.
So, he and I, and we're kind of like the co-leaders of the South Shore Managers Association. We've got about 20, 25 managers here on the South Shore that are in an organization that we meet about every 5 or 6 weeks. And, Rocco and I formed it, about 15 years ago, and we've been pretty successful in keeping it together and doing a lot of joint purchasing as well. So, but yeah, I was able to. I think in this business, there might be some egos, but everybody shares the work. I mean, right now, of course, with the technology the way it is, a manager can send out an email to 20 managers, and especially here on the South Shore, because we know each other personally, yep, and say, how much do you pay your treasurer collector or chief assessor? Rennie Reed, the town manager in Duxbury, recently sent out one and asked for a survey of salaries for certain positions. I believe somebody in another town sent out a blanket email asking for stipends that elected officials receive in your town. So plagiarism is legal in town government, and we constantly are borrowing ideas and documents from one another regarding that. A recent example is the town of Pembroke wants to get involved in having a solar farm on its capped landfill, and found out that Rockland had just gone through all that. And so we invited Alan Chaka, who's the town administrator in Rockland, to come down and speak to the Energy Committee about how Rockland did it. And Alan was great. He came in with all kinds of documents and walked the committee through the pros and cons of this and what to look out for. And we're happy to do that. Another example will be in a couple of weeks, Chairman Dan Tribuco's Government Study Committee has invited the Form of Government Committee from the Mass Municipal Managers Association. So Charlie Cristello from Middleborough will be in attendance at that, and he will be sharing his thoughts with the committee about his work in either a weak manager form of government or a strong manager form of government. So, and we do that a lot. I spoke in front of the precinct chairs in Plymouth about a year and a half ago regarding trash. And and how we went about it in Pembroke. Melissa, had known that I went through it, and they were thinking about having, recycling bins like we had, and I shared with the precinct chairs, the safeguards that we put in about the recycling bins. We have serial numbers on them. We have them on municipal lien certificates. We have the the recycling bin number on your trash bill. And so we ensure that when somebody sells their homes, the recycling bins don't go with the person.
Yeah.
So we got some safeguards built into that. And I was able to share that with the people in Plymouth. So we do that a lot, and it's one of the really gratifying things about the profession, about how we do share what we've learned, and then what to look out for. So I just recently attended the monthly managers meeting down in Marion yesterday morning, and the guest speaker was talking about how baby boomers and Generation X managers deal with the new millennials, a younger generation, and what their aspirations and goals are and what have you, and how it's different from baby boomers and from Generation X managers. So, and we were able to share some stories that some of the managers, proposed, about interviews. I got a kick out of the one manager that said she had recently had an interview with a prospective employee, and the employee A wanted to know if she could work from home 1 day a week, and number two, could she bring her dog to work? So, I think that those are things that nobody would have thought of before, but, that she was able to share with the other managers that were there about, these are some of the questions that are being asked by a different generation, so.
Wow, that's interesting. Going back, the whole sharing of ideas, it's all for the greater good.
Oh, absolutely.
It's helping the community out.
Yeah, you don't want to sit there and try to reinvent the wheel if another community has already done it. And like I said, you might have individual egos, but when it comes to the profession, then everybody leaves them at the door. Right. And you might have a strong personality, you might have a soft personality, but everybody's in it together, and we all know what it's like to be a manager or administrator, local governmental head, and some of the things that you have to deal with. Right. And we empathize with each other regarding that. So.
Well, actually, that brings us to another part. As the town administrator, you work with a lot of people, and what's your management style with like the department heads, the elected officials?
Well, the manager or the administrator is like the football coach. He has to know everybody's position and what they do.
Please tell me you have a whistle.
Sometimes I think I need one, but I remember my first department head meeting when I got here in November of '98. I sat in this conference room, and all the department heads were there. And they didn't know me from Adam. And I sat there, and I introduced myself, and I gave them a brief history of my career, very brief. And then I told them, I said, I don't want you folks to think that I just fell off a turnip truck and don't know what I'm talking about, because I really do. I said, I've been a city manager where the hierarchy was more of a pyramid, where everybody reported to one person. And I was the one person. So I'm used to that form of government. I know what it's like here in Pembroke. I know that it's the organizational chart is a little flatter because there are so many elected boards, elected officials report to really themselves. But I know what you folks do. I know what a fire chief does and a police chief and an assessor. I know all these things.
Right.
I'm not going to tell you how to do your business, but I want you to know that I know what you folks do. And I'm here to help you. I'm here to assist you. I'm here to coordinate the efforts of all of your departments to the common good for the best of the community. And that's the way I left it. And I think that they found it, that, you know, that I'm not a micromanager. You know, I'm there to help them. I think it's kind of ironic that my office, the way it's laid out with that giant window there, is, you know, and I think when I first got there, it was like a little disconcerting that, you know, I'm in a fishbowl. But, you know, I think it epitomizes our style. You know, we have a very open government. My office, it's a real open-ended, open door policy. Unless I'm involved in something that I can't get away from, I'll talk to anybody that wants to talk to me. You know, people unannounced, what have you, you know,
right, yeah.
can come in, and if they need to talk to the town administrator, you know, if I'm not up to my eyeballs in something, I'll take the time to talk to them. In fact, I actually came back from the managers meeting yesterday to meet with somebody who's interested in serving on a board or a commission in town. Unfortunately, he had to reschedule it, but, you know, I was there to explain to him, because a lot of folks might live in the town and not know how their government runs. You know, they get their garbage picked up, and maybe they, you know, if they unfortunately need an ambulance or a police officer, that's all they say. I remember coming back from a flight in Florida, and I was flying into Providence, and I was sitting next to somebody that we struck up a conversation, and she was from Pembroke. And I said, that's great. I said, I work at Pembroke. She goes, oh, really? What do you do? And I said, I'm the town administrator. She goes, what's that? And now she is an integral part of Pembroke, you know. But back then, it was like, what does a town administrator do, you know? So I had to explain very briefly, you know, what my role is in the community. So, but, you know, like I said, early on, you know, the modern family is so busy. And the chances are that the parent or parents are working out of town. And so they leave early in the morning, come back early evening, and then they have their family. And they don't interact, you know, unless their son or daughter is in some kind of event, you know, or activity. And, you know, the parents, I mean, we see it at town meeting, you know. This past town meeting, we saw a lot of different people, which is good.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
We had some issues. You know, we had some departmental issues and labor contracts that were being voted on, and so that brought out a bunch of, you know, family and supporters of some of our unions. So, but I think that's something that the town meeting, you know, faces as we talked earlier, with the modern family and the modern lifestyle that folks have.
Well, one thing I've seen that you've mentioned, as far as, like, and I know what your role is when you're speaking with town employees, is it seems that you have a good relationship of trust with them.
Yeah, I think, and you earn it. You don't demand it. You know, you know, like I told the departments back in '98, I said, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm just here to help the town. And you know, I think over the years that, you know, I'm not saying I've become the man, but because you got elected officials out there that, you know, that, well, I'm an elected person, you know, but I think the employees, you know, they're the ones that do all the grunt work in town. They're the ones that are on the front lines, and they're the ones that, you know, will do things for the community. I know that, you know, our public works department, a lot of the folks there live in town, and they take, and as I mentioned earlier on, take ownership in what they're doing. You know, they want town hall to look nice. They want town properties to look nice. I think, you know, that we see that commitment from them, and we want to make their work environment as comfortable as we can and as attractive as it can. And I think, you know, with some of the things that are looming on the horizon, obviously the 800-pound gorilla or elephant in the room is going to be the community center, you know, about what we're going to do with that building. There's a need for that, a building like that, because of all the activities that are there. It's not like we can just blow it up. We would be displacing the recreation department, youth hockey, a daycare center, and all of the activities that are in the building year round.
And it's historical.
Well, it's historical, but you know, I think just the use of it, you know, when you got 20,000 people in our community and you got a full-blown recreation and you got programs, pardon the pun, ranging from basketball to basket weaving in that facility, and it's year-round, it's 7 days a week, and you know, we can't afford not to have a facility like that.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, that's going to be our big thing here in the next couple of months. You know, we had the study done. The committee did a lot of work on that. The Y gave us a proposal. It wasn't economically feasible for the town to handle all that debt, to construct a 50,000 square foot building for $10–15 million and not have the return on the investment that we would have gotten, you know, from the proposal by the Y. So now we have to look at a scaled down version, we think, but we still want to do something because it's right in the middle of town. That town green is used, as we all know, for events year round, and we want to, you know, because of the nature of that community building and where it sits and its proximity to a new shopping center and a really attractive library, that you know, we want to do what we can, you know, to ensure the future of that building.
Well, our time is wrapping up. I do have to ask though, as far as if you had to describe at least one accomplishment in your career that you're proud of, what would it be? And I realize it's kind of a broad question.
You know, I think, you know, the way the system we have right now, we haven't had to do any kind of operational overrides. We've really worked hard to work within our budgets. I think the curbside recycling program has been a great success, and we really spent a lot of time and energy on making it easier for people to recycle, and whether it was how many days, you know, whether it was going to be weekly or bi-weekly, how big was going to be the container. We even spent time and energy on what color it was going to be. You know, we had a survey done on our website, whether it was going to be blue or green or whatever. So, and that seems to have really worked well, and that comes to you know, my mind immediately.
Well, our time is wrapped up, but thank you, Ed, and we'll stay tuned for the next show. And this has been Pembroke Today.